Hello everyone, Jack here, back at it again to record another D&D video. I'm sorry for the long delay in between the last video and this video. I really don't like editing these videos, but I got the motivation again, so here we are, and we'll see how this goes. I plan on making another video next week, so let's hope I stick to that. Today's video is going to be about quest hooks and leading the players to adventure. So I think something important to remember here is that if your players are feeling forced into an adventure, it's not going to be as fun if they organically choose to go down that adventure themselves. So trying to avoid forcing things too hard is a very important thing here. But I'm of the belief that if presented with the choice to go on an adventure, players will choose to go on an adventure, even if the hooks are provided in a clumsy way. I think we are all here to play a game, and everyone understands that, though it is important to try to present your hooks as seamlessly as possible, as it increases the enjoyment and immersion for everyone at the table. So when it comes to feeding hooks, I think there are three main different types of campaigns. I think there are the type where you are just doing exploration of a specific area, a story-driven campaign, and an open world campaign. In today's video, we're going to talk about all three of those types of campaigns and how to feed hooks into each of them. We're going to start with the simplest one, which I think is the exploration campaign, and then go to the harder ones, which are the story-driven, and then finally the open world campaign. So what do I mean when I say exploration-driven campaign? I mean when you have the players exploring known points of interest in the wilderness, or going down into known dungeons, or even a mega dungeon. So I think this type of campaign is the easiest to feed hooks for, because I don't think it's actually necessary to feed any hooks. I think you can just tell the players, hey, this is the type of campaign we're going to be running, and your characters are going to be doing these types of explorations. I think if the expectations are set right, people will understand and enjoy this type of forwardness a bit more than if you try to clumsily come together with a reason why they should be exploring these points of interest or mega dungeons in-game, even if there is no actual story reason to do so. So I think being forward and just telling them, hey, I think we're going to be running a exploration-driven campaign would be the best bet here. So when you actually get to the table to play session one, this would look like you've all come to this town, you are meeting in the local tavern, and you have a map that leads out into the wilderness to these points of interest or to this mega dungeon. What would you like to do? Or if you want to get even more simple, you can simply just say, hey, you spawn outside of the dungeon. Would you like to enter? This direct type of approach is very simple. It works quite easily for this type of campaign and will avoid any type of confusion. And now slightly harder than the exploration-driven campaign is the main story campaign. I think the main story campaign is slightly more difficult because you actually need to set up quest hooks and build in-game engagement into the story. But it isn't as difficult because once you get the main story flowing, things should just continue to go down that path relatively easily. So I think for this, the main hooks you have to focus on are the inciting incident hooks and how you get the players from people that are just hanging out in the starting town to adventurers going on this long main quest. Some examples of inciting incidents can be goblins coming into the town to wreck everything, the main bad guy coming into the town and kidnapping someone or stealing some type of artifact. This large type of incident in a confined area gives the players something to investigate and go after. It gives them a motivation and some direct direction. I think before you set up the inciting incident, it's important to build connection with a NPC, whether that be someone that brought all the players together in this town for some reason, the innkeep, a mayor, basically any trustworthy, generally good, but not powerful NPC. I say not powerful because you don't want them to be able to solve the issues for the PCs. You just want them to be able to give guidance. And you don't want them to be able to give infinite guidance. They'll still have limited information, but they'll have more answers than the PC because they're more familiar with the area than the players, and they'll be able to give you a little bit of a expo dump before the players go on to the main adventure. I think building a decent connection with this NPC before the quest starts is really good, so that the players know who to go to when the inciting incident happens. but it's not completely necessary. If you just have a town mayor or innkeep who is willing to help the PCs out after whatever major incident happens in the town happens, then I think it should be good enough. Once you have your major incident happening, the person getting kidnapped, the town being burnt down, the players will probably try to recuperate, collect their thoughts, speak to people around the town. And when they do so, you can give them some information, possibly tell them, oh, the goblins live here. The main bad guy has a outpost here. Whatever it is to get them to the first point of interest in your campaign. I believe that once you have the inciting incident down, going from quest to quest in one of these large overarching story type campaigns is relatively easy because you have the players go and explore a dungeon. They are looking for an artifact, possibly the kidnapped person, or maybe a goblin leader. They get to the end of the dungeon. They find that whatever they were looking for isn't here, or maybe it is here, but something bigger is happening. Whatever it is, they find information that tells them to go to the next location, or they bring it back and someone tells them to go to the next location. It becomes a more simplistic loop, very easy and light load on the DM, but that inciting incident is what you really need to actually sit down and think about. Unlike these other quests, I think about the inciting incident more like story. Well, you don't want to take the player's agency away. Having a more scripted out big event happening in front of them that gives a good motivation for following the main storyline is very important, because without a solid foundation and good motivation, players could get confused as to why they are doing this large story. Obviously, we're all here to play a game, so they'll most likely just continue to go down the story, even if they end up forgetting why they're doing it. But I think it's important not to get to that point, because if the players are questioning, hey, why are we even doing this? Things kind of get a little weird at the table, and then they just go, oh, well, it's because it's a game. And you don't really want them saying, oh, we're doing this because it's a game, because that takes out the immersion of the shared world. So I think having a good scripted inciting incident that gives good motivation for why the players would want to continue on the main quest allows them to have something to look back on when they are later down the storyline, and they can say, oh, well, we're here because X bad guy burnt down the village or kidnapped the blacksmith's daughter and performed a demonic ritual on her. That motivation will allow them to carry on and continue the quests, and will create a better flow throughout the rest of the story. The final and most difficult type of campaign for seeding quests is the open world campaign. So this is the type of campaign where you have the players exploring in a large area, doing things based on their own whims. So I find that this is the most difficult to prepare for, because to make it actually feel open world, you want to have a bunch of different types of quests and points of interest all over the map, while still being prepared for whatever the adventurers are going to go down. So obviously, if they set out into the woods and they're looking around, they find nothing, that can be very boring. But if you end up just forcing quests down their throat, then it doesn't feel open world. It just feels like it's a story-driven campaign, which isn't necessarily bad. It might just not be what your players signed up for. I found there's a couple ways where you can give out a bunch of different quests all at once while still remaining prepared as a DM. One of those ways is that you could have a quest board at the center of the town. A quest board doesn't necessarily have to be that basic board with a bunch of different posters on it telling the players where to go and what to do. It could be something more engaging, like a ancient map given to one of the PCs by a long lost relative, or something more exotic like that. I think another good way to get the players' quests in an open world campaign is to have a high level NPC. So a high level NPC would be someone who is busy doing other more important things that are too difficult for the PCs at their current level, or possibly doing research into things that the PCs just don't understand yet. And so they can't necessarily be dealing with these smaller low level quests, but they do know that the quests out there exist because they're high level. They just can't be bothered to do them. So this high level NPC would likely look for a small adventuring party like the player characters and give them these quests so that the town can stay safe, or he can get a item for a piece of research he's doing. These high level NPCs will provide a bunch of different quests that the PCs can go on, but since they're high level, they wouldn't necessarily want to go on the quest themselves. And so it can be an almost endless supply of quests. Go protect this village from this thing. Go explore this dungeon and get me this item. Then they go explore that dungeon, and there's more to it than the high level NPC actually knew about, or There's cooler items that the PCs can keep for themselves. All these different things can be provided for by a high-level NPC, but there's a plausible reason why that NPC wouldn't want to go on those quests. Possibly they're off exploring somewhere else where the PCs just couldn't go, or they are locked in their laboratory doing a bunch of research on a new spell or potion. So I believe that a high-level NPC is a very good way to provide quests to a low-level party without giving them too much help. The final way that I'd recommend giving player characters quests in an open world campaign is random encounters. So these random encounters can be out in the wild or in town. They can be with friendlies or enemies. It doesn't really matter. All of them provide a unique way to subtly demonstrate a quest. So for example, if you have goblins ambush the players on the road, instead of that just being a combat encounter, you can have one of the goblins at the end of the combat run away down a disused path that branches off of the main path. The players might then think, oh, let me go investigate that, and they could be led to a dungeon or a goblin camper, whatever you possibly could put at the end of that disused path. Or maybe, for example, in town, a friendly traveling merchant is passing through, and while he is selling his wares to the PCs, he mentions casually in conversation that there's talk of a witch to the south. That might encourage the PCs to then move south and start investigating these claims. And that could lead to a fight with a witch. Or maybe the rumor isn't true, but it leads to something else. Maybe a creature that the locals were mistaking for a witch. So with all three of these types of campaigns, I think something that's really important to remember is that your players are always looking for a quest. They don't want to just come to the table and sit around. So it may seem difficult to drop quest hooks, but even if you clumsily drop a quest hook here or clumsily drop one there, the players will likely pick up on them and completely forget how they actually got the quest hook and just be glad that they have something to do. You'll obviously get better with time and practice. You'll find ways to casually drop it into conversation when they're speaking with the innkeep. Maybe the players are out of character talking about what should we do next, or talking about something that they saw out in the wild, and the innkeep overhears them and he approaches and says, oh, I've heard this. Have you done XYZ? But the intuition to do that comes with lots and lots of practice and lots of times of just clumsily dropping quest hooks here and quest hooks there. I do think it's important to get good at slowly dropping these hooks in, because I think the clumsy dropping of quest hooks kind of breaks the immersion a little bit. But even if the immersion is broken a little bit here, a little bit there, your players will just overall be happy to be going on a quest and doing something and forget the way that they got that quest. So it's not too big of a deal if that happens here or there. But I think that with practice, you'll learn how to pick up on the way your players are speaking and talking about what they want to do. And you'll find a way for an NPC to approach them casually, or find a way for an NPC they're talking to have had a reason to know that information. I think something that a lot of DMs end up getting caught up in is this NPC knows this or that NPC knows that. If your players are lost and confused as to what to do next, I think it's completely okay for you to sit there as a DM and think, okay, why would this blacksmith know about this quest hook? And then drop the quest hook at the blacksmith if that's where your players are digging around. You shouldn't just leave quest hooks in one place. You should make up a reason for why whatever NPC the players are interacting with would have a quest hook. It doesn't necessarily have to be the one you planned on dropping then and there, but making sure that the players always are moving on to the next thing and getting to the next quest is important, because lulls in play are really where people start to lose interest. I think if you could take away anything from this, it's just make sure that you're willing to think on your feet and figure out who knows what on the fly, rather than being so set in stone with X NPC knows this and Y NPC knows that. Because if you think in that way, you'll be waiting for ages for a reason for that NPC to approach the party, or for the party to approach them, and things will never get done. I want to thank everyone for watching to the end of the video. I hope that this was a shorter video, giving you the good information really quick. I hope to be coming out with a video on combat sometime in the next couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. But other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, week, month, and year. Peace out.